Hi, my name is Thomas Colombaris. I'm from Randolph, New Jersey, and I'm currently business undeclared freshman at the University of Delaware. For my obscure but phenomenal African American, I chose Robert Smalls. Not many people know about Robert Smalls, but his legacy is something that should not be forgotten or overlooked by any means. Robert Smalls was born on April 5th, 1839, in Beaufort, South Carolina. He was born into slavery with his mom, Lydia Polite. She was already owned by the master, but worked in the house, while Robert was forced to work in the fields. By the time he was 12, he was sent to Charleston to work along the boat docks. Here, he found love with working on the boat docks and eventually promoted to wheelman, which allowed him to work directly on the boat. The boat he worked on was the CSS Planter, which was a Confederate military transport ship. While working on this, Robert's knowledge of the boat and the Charleston harbor was unmatched, and it led him to begin planning his escape. On May 12th, he set out with 7 other slave families who worked on the boat and were able to escape to the Union. He got there safely, and the Planter became a Union boat now. Because of what he did, Robert Smalls was highly commemorated, and he was praised and to be a hero by many. He had many newspapers and magazines written about him. Because of his accomplishments, Abraham Lincoln allowed the first African-American troops to serve in the Navy, and this was huge. He allowed 5,000 men to serve at Port Royal, and these were the first black men to serve in battle. Smalls was still able to captain a ship along with a few other battleships. He was also a great asset to the Union because of his knowledge of the Confederate mines and forts. After the war, he returned back to his hometown of Beaufort, but instead of being a slave, he was a hometown hero. He actually bought his previous slave owner's house and had his mom move in with him. From here, he spent around 9 months learning to read and write to better his education and future. He ended up purchasing a small building and making it into a school for African American children. By 1868, the 14th Amendment was passed, which allowed for everyone to have rights no matter the race. After moving back home, Smalls began to get into politics. Because of his decorated war experience, it was relatively easy for him to get into it, and he became a Republican because he said without the Republican Party, he would have never been a freed man and been able to get into politics. Early on, he was unsuccessful because of his inexperience, but he did everything he could to try and get more bills passed for his fellow African Americans. In 1868, he was elected into the South Carolina House of Representatives, which was his first major role in politics. He helped pass several bills before he was elected to the Senate in 1872. He was president at every convention until 1896. In 1874, he was elected to the United States House of Representatives and served 2 terms in 1875 and 1879. In the late 1890s, he was diagnosed with diabetes, which forced him to transition back to local politics, and he returned back to Beaufort. Robert Smalls married Hannah Jones on December 23rd, 1856, and had 3 kids with her. Unfortunately, she died in 1883, and eventually Smalls remarried in 1890 to Annie E. Wigg, who he had another kid with. She also ended up dying only 5 years after they got married in 1895. At the age of 75, Robert Smalls died from malaria and diabetes on February 23, 1915.